Hi, my name is Tyler Mowery, and welcome to the Writer's Mind Podcast, Episode 6. All right. Welcome back, Patreon members, to another episode. Today, I want to talk about intelligence. What is intelligence, and how do we apply the idea of intelligence to our understanding of people and our understanding of the world and how we are supposed to deal with it, right? So first off, I think it's very obvious that intelligence is this weird idea that we know exists, but we don't really know how to nail it down, in the sense that it's hard to say, this completely equals intelligence, right? For every test you can have on, intellectual ability, there's people to come around and say that test is faulty or doesn't work for whatever reason, right? There's all sorts of critics of the IQ test, and there's also people who advocate for the IQ test, but that's not the only. There's all sorts of intelligence tests and personality tests, and there's different theories of how intelligence works, and there's theories of multiple intelligence, right? You have people talk about interpersonal intelligence, naturalistic intelligence, visual spatial intelligence, logical mathematical intelligence, bodily kinesthetic intelligence. There's this idea that you can have different categories of how intelligence works. And all of that, I have no idea. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have a lot of idea, and I really don't think I haven't really done much reading on this. I haven't done much reading on IQ. I haven't done much reading on just general theories of intelligence. But what I have done is I've thought about it, and I think that I'm going to talk about thinking about it, and I hope that you can do the same, right? I think that first off, you have this kind of question that gets thrown around a lot of everyone's intelligent, right? People are differently intelligent, but we're all intelligent in some capacity, right? I think that's thrown around. And let's talk about what that means. I think that, yes, I think everyone's intelligent in the sense that they're human. I think human beings have a baseline of intelligence, in the sense of, if you're defining intelligence, it's as functionality. People have a baseline functionality. We can speak to other people. People understand what we say. We can work together. We can work together in massive groups. People can have different roles. And so, yes, in that sense, everyone is intelligent. But I don't think, it's pretty clear that some people are smarter than others, right? It's hard to define what that means. It's hard to take such an abstract idea and put it down onto paper. But when you're dealing with somebody that is very intelligent, you know it. You can feel that. When you're dealing with somebody who is not that intelligent, you also feel that too. What's also interesting is trying to figure out where you stand in this, sort of hierarchy of intelligence, right? We know there's geniuses out there, but what does being a genius feel like, right? When you're a genius, do you wake up every day and you think, oh, wow, I just see the world so much clearer than everyone else. I feel like a genius. Do geniuses feel like geniuses, or do they just feel normal and then they do things that are perceived as genius by other people? And then they are labeled as genius because of their works or their thoughts or their breakthroughs or whatever. And then you have certain people who talk about, certain people that we would consider geniuses talk about how they don't think they're geniuses. They just stick to problems longer than other people do. or they define problems better than other people do, which then you could say, oh, if all geniuses just stick to problems more, maybe geniuses just someone's ability to stick to a problem. Just a thought. I'm not saying that, but just an idea. It's interesting to think about just how people's minds operate in that way, where you can look at the other way. Does an unintelligent person know they are unintelligent? Can they feel that? Do they walk around knowing they're stupid, or that they are less intelligent than most people? I think another problem comes into this is that when we're trying to analyze ourselves, we are not objective at our own self-analysis, right? You may feel very smart, but you may not be that smart. You may just have a vision or perception of your own self that is not accurate. And with the same coin, people can believe that they are stupid and not be stupid and be very intelligent, but their self-perception is coloring their beliefs about themselves, right? And so it becomes harder than just saying, oh, this person's intelligent, this person isn't. How do you feel? How do you feel about your own mind? Are you smart or whatever? And this is something that's really interesting to think about. Application of your own self-belief about your own intelligence, right? Practical application of that idea. If you believe you are a certain intelligence level, that defines some of the actions that you take, right? For example, if you don't think you're that smart, then you may not go for certain things that you want, or go down certain paths that you want, or set certain goals that you want to achieve, because you believe you are not smart enough to get those things or do those things. On the flip side, if you have a strong belief in your own intelligence, whether or not you're that smart, you're definitely going to be doing more. You're going to be trying more. You're going to be going after what you want more than somebody who does not have that confidence. So then you get into this other idea of like, is a part of intelligence just confidence in your own abilities? Is sticking to a problem longer just a side effect of the fact that you believe that you can solve problems? And so you just stick with them even though they are difficult and seemingly impossible to solve. And this is just so hard. It's such an abstract idea, right? When you're trying to measure this, right? Like you have things like the IQ test, but it's like there's such it's such a wild distillation of our view on intelligence, right? And not that it's unhelpful, I believe that we should be doing our best on these things. And so somebody making a test to gauge practically intelligence levels, I don't see any problem with that. I think, other than the fact that, I don't know. Let me pause. I think there is a problem with that to a certain extent. It's weird because you're in this weird scale, right? It's like a sliding scale. It's a gray area, because I think on a certain level it is important to have an understanding of who's smart and who isn't, who's more intelligent and who isn't. And then in that frame, if you're looking for, I think, militaries like to use the IQ test as an intelligence test. And what they are looking for, their intelligence measure really comes down to how useful is this person, right? So the smarter you are, the more useful you are to the military that you exist within, right? And so then they use something like the IQ test to figure out how useful a particular individual is going to be in this system that they've made. Is that useful? Sure, it's useful. You have to be able to figure out, who the best people for certain positions are efficiently and quickly, especially if you have enemies at your shores, And so it's interesting that something like the military, they are having to be very real world and very practical about these sorts of things. They don't get the luxury to sit in a room and just talk about these abstract concepts, right? And I really like that. I like that because I love the forcing abstract concepts into a reality, because you cannot truly test abstract concepts until you have to bring them into the real world and take actions because of them. Hence, a lot of my pushing of this idea of philosophical conflict, this idea of characters holding beliefs that changes what they do and how they act within a story. Because if you don't take actions based upon the beliefs that you hold, then you never really know what you believe. And if you don't have to solve some sort of problem, then it makes it easier for you to just never hold a real belief in regards to the problem that you're trying to solve. And so, of course, I don't think that we should be defining people's lives based upon something like an IQ test. But I also understand why people would create the IQ test, if that makes sense, right? I see both sides of that. What really gets interesting for me is when you get into this idea of, can everyone be a critical thinker? Do you have to have a certain level of mental capacity to be a critical thinker? Because there's a certain level of independence and awareness necessary to think critically. So could you instill critical thinking skills in every person or every child? Because if you could, I think there's some value in that, obviously. People being able to truly decide how they as an individual see the world and view the world and how it operates and how best to live. Or can some people legitimately not do that? I don't know. I'm presenting this question to you as something to think about. Because sometimes it experientially, living in life and existing with others, sometimes it doesn't seem like certain people grasp the idea of critical thinking or can. But here's the problem too, right? You get into a situation where then you as an individual are making this godlike decision on who is and isn't worthy for whatever, right? Or, you're making this godlike decision on who can and cannot be a critical thinker, right? And that's not something we can do, right? We can't say, oh, this person is just unable to truly think. And, you're not God, you're not a God, you don't have the ability to be within someone's mind and make that call for another person. And so you end up in a situation where then you have to just do the work to help those that you can try to be critical thinkers once you are a critical thinker or have started the journey of becoming a critical thinker. And then you can kind of walk with other people and say, hey, what if you think about it this way? Or, what do you as an individual think? What do you as one person think about this thing? Not what other people have said. What do you think? And maybe not everybody can go with you on that journey. I don't know. But I think either way, you have to do the work of bringing the possibility of that to multiple people, right? So, for me, this is a little bit meta, but for me, I really value critical thinking, and I value looking at ideas, and I value people trying to formulate their own opinion and learn more and continually unlearn things that they have learned in the past that are incorrect, and relearn and seek out new information and apply new information to their own experiences. I mean, I really love this process. It's why I love stories. It's why I love thinking. It's why I made this podcast. And so, as somebody who loves this so much and is so fascinated by it, I want to send some things out, right, with this podcast and with the other things that I've done, and say, hey, what do you think? What do you think as an individual? And if you can really grasp onto that question and hold on to it and apply it, just continually apply that idea to so many areas of your life, I think it makes your life better. Now, it definitely will give you more existential dilemmas, and in certain ways it can make your life more complicated. And that's why I think people, if you just came from episode 5, that's why I think people like staying in a tribe or an ideology, staying within an anti-conceptual mentality, because thinking and critical thinking and going through all this is difficult. And it's hard to say, is it for everyone? I hope so. Genuinely, I hope so. That's my optimistic view. Can everyone be a critical thinker? I don't know. Will everyone? No. And that's just obvious. Not everyone will be. Does everybody have the opportunity to be, or have the capability, the intelligence to do so? Maybe. I can't make that call. I know I can know things for me, and I can do my best to try to introduce people to ideas, because I love when people introduce me to ideas. But to make this massive call that people are this way for sure, that's really hard to do. And I think there is a certain legitimacy to this idea that there are different sort of elements to intelligence. I think that's definitely true, And then trying to define, people call creativity as an element of intelligence, but you're trying to define one difficult to define thing with another difficult to define thing. What is creativity? And then we have all these associations with creativity. Oh, storytellers and artists and designers and painters and whatever, these entrepreneurs, these people are creative. But creativity is just making associations, or one of the elements of creativity is making associations between things that aren't clearly associated. Lots of people are doing that all the time that would not be considered traditionally creative, And so it's just you end up in this abstract world of trying to figure out what intelligence is. But I think the application, again, so I hold certain views that I'm not sure if they are correct, but I know they're useful. So what I mean by that is certain beliefs I hold may be, I may be wrong in that belief, but holding that belief is useful to me. Therefore, it becomes, in a way, truthful for me. So let me explain what I'm talking about here. I believe I am an intelligent person. I believe that things that I build, things that I do, goals that I want to achieve, I believe that I can do these things. And I think that it goes very high, right? I know that I'm some guy on YouTube, but I think that with enough focused effort, I can do very, very, very large things. And that belief is beneficial for me because even for example, I think it's possible that with enough focused effort and the goal set, I am someone who could become a billionaire, right? Well, that's a crazy idea, right? How is that even possible? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's factually, realistically, not a possible thing. But I have a pretty strong self-confidence in the idea that if I bet on myself, if I want to build a thing, if I want to get to a certain place, if I want to influence something, that I can do that. It just takes time and it takes goal setting, and it may take longer than I want it to, and it may, there may be all these sorts of things that I learn, and I may make all sorts of mistakes, but ultimately I can get to where I'd like to be. And that belief is very useful for me, right? Maybe I can't, be a billionaire or whatever, right? But the idea that I have the intelligence level and the confidence and the goal-oriented ability to get the things that I will want to get, that is a useful belief. True or not, real or not. There is, people talk about mindset and these sorts of things. But there's definitely this idea that you do create your reality to a certain extent. Your reality is created by you, created by the beliefs that you hold about yourself. If you don't believe that you're an intelligent person, you will not do things that intelligent people do, regardless of whether or not you are intelligent. And so you have to, I think, find practical beliefs to hold that are of benefit to you regardless of reality, right? This is actually why I would discourage people from taking an IQ test, right? Because I forget, what's the... let me look this up. IQ test. I forget the scale of what the high number is. Okay, so 130 to 144 is gifted, very advanced. 120 to 129 is superior. 110 to 119 is high average. 90 to 109 is average, etc., etc., etc. So, if you get let's say you get a low average score or an average score, or even a high average score, then you say, oh, this number, I now believe that this number is where I fit in this system, of intelligence. Therefore, I will not try to do things that I believe are only able to be achieved by extremely superior, intelligent people, right? I think it's just, there's certain things like that where you just believing that you are intelligent and operating in that fashion is just more beneficial for you, So, I hope that makes sense. Again, like both in storytelling and this is why I like storytelling, in the sense that what storytelling does is it forces beliefs and abstractions to be played out in this sort of fake world that we get to create. And then we get to look at consequences to beliefs. And I think that's a big thing that we leave out in a lot of philosophy, is we leave out the consequences of ideas. And stories allow us to try to at least look at potential consequences of ideas. And I think that makes them a very productive medium, because it's this whole other element to what we believe that is important, right? And so, should we simply hold to an exact reality, or should we, just try to see what is real? Or should we do our best to tip the scales in our own favor as an individual as much as possible? On top of the fact that things like the IQ test are built by human beings. And, I'm sure that our theories of intelligence are going to be vastly different 400 years from now than they are now. And so, I hope that makes sense. And, I think that whether or not you think you're smart, you're probably smart. You're listening to a podcast of your own volition about critical thinking. I think the chances are at least tipped in your favor that you're trying, and I would really say run with that. Run with the belief that you are very intelligent, and prove it to yourself by accomplishing things in the real world that show you, hey, this isn't just some abstract concept you're holding on to. You actually do have a level of intelligence. And I'm telling you, when you gain that, things change. When you gain some real world feedback and understand that, hey, you're a smart person. You can do a lot more than you think you can. Game changing for your life. Game changing. And, but the only way you get there is by going out and making it tangible, doing something practical, building something, writing something, creating something, taking time and effort in solving problems. And I hope you do that. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm glad to have you here. Please go into the Discord and let's have a discussion about this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And if you have questions or topics that you want to be discussed on the podcast, leave them in the Discord. And I will see you guys in the next episode.